Hi there, Salena Kulkarni here with another episode of the Alternative Investing Podcast. My mission is to help business owners build high-performance wealth that delivers reliable, predictable cash flow through unconventional strategies so they can fast-track their path to financial freedom. Each week I share with you the strategies, expert interviews, and real people's stories around the topic of wealth and financial freedom. And if you're a business owner who wants to learn more about financial freedom through alternative methods, please head over to my website, freedomwarrior.com.au, where you can access my library of articles, interviews, and programs to help you on your way to becoming more financially free. Hey gang, super excited to be picking up where we left off after our last episode. Last week I shared with you the 9 projects or accelerators that are really required for you to put your head into in terms of developing the skills of a professional investor. And today what I want to talk about are the attributes that you want to be thinking about when you're thinking about who you are as an investor if you really want to step up and become, as I said, a professional investor. So where I want to start today is distinguishing the 4 qualities that I believe are critical for you to invest in if you are looking to step up and get a higher alpha or a well above average result with your investing. If you're not interested in getting epic results, if you're happy to take the slow train to retirement, then please by all means, skip this episode. But I think for those of you who are looking for how do I get an edge in a super competitive world where there is often saturated interest to acquire a good deal, you need every, I think, tool and skill that you can to get ahead. So the 4 attributes are mindset, stewardship, investment effectiveness, and knowledge. And how, let me just give you a quick backstory, how I've come to find or hone in on those 4 attributes has really come about through 2 activities. One has been hanging out with amazing people who are killing it from an investment standpoint, who are generating the sorts of investment results that most people dream of. Not famous people, not people in mainstream media, not famous educators or celebrities, just quiet achievers who, frankly, on the surface of it, don't necessarily live an extravagant life, but who have really mastered the skill around growing and maintaining their wealth. The other source of inspiration for developing these 4 attributes has actually come from working with hundreds of investors over the last 10, 12 years and observing what I can see as patterns of behaviors that support wealth creation and those that to some degree unfortunately sabotage the wealth creation efforts. And so that's kind of where I started in reflecting on these attributes. And so I want to kind of unpack what each of them mean to me, how I view them, and how you can, if you're really serious about wanting to transform your results, you've really got to pay attention to these and work out if there's a weakness there. How do you kind of resolve that weakness? How do you fix it? And if I talk about, like I'm doing this in the wrong order, but if I talk about solutions can be anything from formal education to gleaning wisdom from those people who have walked the path before you, to kind of just scouring the net for resources, to sometimes things as, crazy and left of field as personal development and sitting on the couch in a psychologist's office and recognizing that maybe there's some challenges you want to kind of overcome. Whatever they are, the solutions are not necessarily the obvious ones. So the first attribute that I want to talk about is what I called mindset. And mindset is really the reference to how you feel about money, how you relate to money, how healthy your relationship to money is. If I think about, what sorts of things are we talking about inside of mindset, it's how much wisdom do you bring to the table in terms of not only your analytical capacity to deal with numbers, but also intuitive wisdom. What have you gleaned from the lessons that you learned growing up? How has your own relationship with money evolved as your income has grown? It also incorporates this concept of ambition. Some people have massive amounts of ambition when it comes to running their businesses. And then for whatever reason, that ambition does not translate into, precise efforts when it comes to developing wealth. And that's just, something to be mindful of. Do you actually have that fierce ambition to actually build wealth? And it's a really good question to be asking yourself. The next element of mindset is what I would describe as urgency. So when I talk about urgency, really what I'm saying is how much fire in your belly is there to actually get results and take action? Because we can all have theoretical ambition. We can all say, yes, I want to be wealthy, but how much urgency, how much fire do you bring to your wealth creation activities? Then there's things like goals, like how clear are you about the goals that you have set? And you guys will have heard me talk about the freedom formula. Having clarity about what exactly it is that you need to achieve in order to achieve financial freedom, to hit your goals. And then obviously your beliefs around money. What do you believe to be true? There's all sorts of interesting things I've seen over time, and people can be a little dismissive of beliefs on the virtue of the fact that they might seem a little woo-woo, but I encourage you to really unpack. What do you believe about money? Do you believe you're worthy? Do you believe that you deserve to be wealthy? Do you feel that maybe there's some shame or some guilt about being wealthy? So these are all the sorts of things that kind of sit squarely within the concept of mindset for me. So mindset, number one attribute to really get straight, I would say, is your relationship with money. Because if you don't get that bit straight, it is really like trying to fill a leaky bucket. The next attribute, and I said that's the most important, but it really isn't necessarily the most important. It's just, they're all critical. I'm laughing at myself. They're all important. So the next one I want to talk about is stewardship. So stewardship is something I've spoken about extensively in past episodes. And stewardship, the lost art of stewardship, is how do you look after and care for money that comes into your world? Whether it's money you've earned, whether it's money you've been given, whether you've created it. And so for me, stewardship and the art of stewardship is definitely something that we should be honing. And there's so many great books out there to support you in this. I think I have literally read about 30 books on stewardship. And I'm intrigued, and some systems for stewardship are super complex and others are, pretty basic. One of the ones that a lot of people have read lately is The Barefoot Investor, which I think is epic, and I definitely prescribe that to anyone who just needs a little bit of support on the stewardship front. But stewardship is really, there's three key parts of it to me. The first is the management of money. Do you manage money well? Or do you just kind of fob it off to somebody else? Does it just come into your world? Do you just spend it and have an easy come, easy go attitude? Linked to that is control. So how do you corral your money in ways that allows you to amplify it? And diligence. Diligence is how much time and energy do you put into, making sure that you've got a strong awareness of, your snapshot of wealth and health around that at any particular point in time. Many of the people that come into my world don't have an accurate take on where their balance sheet is at. They have a loose understanding sometimes, but management and control and diligence are really all about giving it a little bit of attention on a regular basis. And some of you may have heard me talk about Cadence. And Cadence, in reference to wealth creation, is just about being able to give a little bit of attention to your wealth creation efforts on a regular basis, even if it's like 15 minutes a month. It's about tuning in and setting rhythms around what you do and how you do it, because ultimately that is what will amplify, compound, and increase your velocity over time. The next attribute that I want to mention is investment effectiveness, and this is so important. I speak to investors all the time who, and I think it's just human nature, they congratulate themselves on having followed, whatever advice or whatever methodology to accumulate a certain number of investments, whether it's properties, shares, or otherwise. But when you ask them the question of how have the investments that you have selected taken you towards your desired goal around financial freedom, most people flounder. And the truth is, we all tell ourselves the stories that help us preserve the picture of what we believe to be true. And so most of us, even if we know we haven't made great decisions, will sometimes justify or make excuses. And really what I'm suggesting is that, investment effectiveness is a reference to how effectively have you chosen investments that align with your goals. So if I were to describe the components, it would be, how good have you been at asset selection? How good have you been at managing investments, redeploying capital, increasing the velocity of your money? That component that I just mentioned, how well does the investments that sit in your personal care, how well do they align with your goals? The number of times I see people chasing strategies that are maybe just being talked about, but just don't align with the goals at all. And also kind of wedged into investment effectiveness is the word which I believe to be super powerful, which is network. How good have you been at finding deal makers and people who are going to not only support you from a wisdom and advice perspective on your wealth creation journey, but also actively feed you with deals that are in alignment with your goals as and when you need them, so that you never ever invest from a place of FOMO. You're never chasing deals. You may have to be patient occasionally, but if you have the right network, not only will you have your ear to the ground and get an understanding of what is working, what is not working at a grassroots level, but you will also get access to deals that just simply don't come into the public domain. And that's ultimately how we create the greatest alpha, meaning the returns which completely outperform the norm. That's how, as an investor, you will reach your financial goals decades before the age of 65 if you get that piece right. And then let me finish with the final attribute, which I'm calling knowledge. It's not just about formal education. It's about, obviously it is about, partly about education, but it doesn't necessarily have to be through formal mechanisms. It can also be through informal means, in terms of the finding of mentors, of informal wisdom that's, gleaned from spending time with people who have the results that you want. The next attribute of knowledge would be thirst for new information ideas. Are you someone who is complacent? Do you feel like you already know what's out there and what's available to you? And do you think you're already doing a good enough job that you don't need to know anymore? Or are you someone who is thirsty for new information ideas? I would actually say that one of the common attributes of people who come into the Freedom Warrior program is their thirst for new information and ideas. There's a lack of complacency, and I love that. I love that there's that hunger for saying, well, what I'm doing is pretty good and maybe I've got a reasonable result, but how can I make it better? And then the final piece of knowledge, which is a word I really love, I'm not sure why, but it's discernment. Your capacity to discern what's important and what's not, what's relevant for you and what's not, what investments are a fit for you and what's not. And so discernment is that ability to get really granular about everything, whether it's knowledge, information, investments, discerning opportunities for really taking the air bubbles out of any of your money management techniques or things like that. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to finish off there, but needless to say, everything in my program and everything that I believe is about sharpening the axe. And if you can give some attention to those four attributes, which are mindset, stewardship, investment effectiveness, and knowledge, I think you're going to go a long way towards getting your axe significantly sharper than the average Joe. So I hope you found that really useful. As I said to you the other day, I think the real starting point for everything is to really get clarity around what is it you want? What do you want for this life? What does your business mean to you? Is it the vehicle for creating wealth? Is it a vehicle for creating impact? Or is it both? Get clarity about what your life means. I mean, you spend so much time at work. Get clarity on the purpose of the business that you run and how that, if at all, ties into your wealth creation endeavors. Till next time, guys. Take care. Thanks so much for listening to the Alternative Investing Podcast. If you're a business owner feeling frustrated that despite doing everything right in the property investing playbook and you're no closer to financial freedom, then head over to freedomwarrior.com.au to learn more about how you can use alternative investments to catapult your investing income and blend strategies to shave decades off your timeline to financial freedom. Till next time, take care. See you on the next episode, and bye for now.